The A-10 Warthog was built around a gun so violent it slows the aircraft down when fired. That's not a design quirk. That's a warning label for every attempt to replace its capabilities that came after it. The A-10 operates as a flying 30mm cannon that the Air Force spent decades trying to get rid of, couldn't, and now desperately needs again. The gun fires 3,900 rounds per minute. The plane built around it weighs over 4,000 pounds just from the weapon system alone. And despite years of retirement plans, military analysts continue to emphasize what observers already knew. There is no direct replacement. There has never been a replacement. And the decision to pretend otherwise nearly got people killed. The GAU-8 Avenger cannon is not installed on an airplane. An airplane was installed around it. That distinction sounds like a joke until you look at the engineering. The gun stretches over 19 feet long, roughly the size of a small car, sitting in the nose of a combat jet. When engineers first started building the A-10, they realized the gun was so enormous and so heavy that the standard nose landing gear placement would throw the barrel off-center. So they moved the front wheel to the right. Not the gun, the wheel. The entire aircraft's front end sits offset so the firing barrel can align perfectly down the center line. That's how serious they were about this weapon. If you've ever heard the A-10 fire, you know the sound. A deep, grinding buzz that lasts less than 2 seconds and leaves a cloud of smoke hanging in the air. That sound is 3,900 rounds per minute, each round a 30mm shell with a depleted uranium core. Depleted uranium is 68% denser than lead. When those rounds hit steel armor, they punch through and burst into flames on contact. The heat and the penetration happen at the same instant, and there is no protection that makes that outcome comfortable for anyone on the receiving end. The GAU-8 system, with its ammunition drum and loading mechanism, weighs 4,029 pounds fully loaded. That's about 16% of the A-10's entire empty weight. A passenger car weighs roughly that much. The aircraft carries that mass in its nose, fires it at nearly 4,000 rounds per minute, and absorbs the recoil in real time. That recoil force peaks at 10,000 pounds. For reference, each of the A-10's 2 jet engines produces 9,065 pounds of thrust. When the gun fires, the recoil force exceeds what a single engine can generate. The plane actually decelerates mid-air when the trigger is pulled. Physics doesn't care about your retirement timeline. The pilot sitting behind all of this has another layer of protection that no replacement aircraft has come close to matching. A titanium armor enclosure shaped like a bathtub wraps around the cockpit and weighs 1,200 pounds on its own. Not fiberglass, not composite panels, titanium. The A-10 was designed for the worst possible scenario. Flying low and slow over a battlefield, taking fire from the ground, and surviving long enough to keep supporting the troops below. The aircraft can absorb hits that would destroy almost any other jet. That's the mission. That's what it was built for. Subscribe to this channel. Every week there are stories like this one, where engineering decisions made decades ago prove smarter than the bureaucrats who tried to undo them, and the details are always worth knowing. Now, about the replacement. The F-35A. The Air Force spent years insisting it could absorb the A-10's close air support role. The F-35 is stealthy, fast, multi-role. The F-35A carries a 25mm GAU-22A cannon internally. On paper, it fills the box. In practice, the comparison falls apart almost immediately. Start with ammunition. The A-10 carries 1,150 rounds of 30mm shells into combat. The F-35A's internal gun holds 181 rounds of 20mm. That's not a rounding error. At maximum rate of fire, the F-35A empties its entire gun in under 4 seconds. 4 seconds. The A-10 provides less than 18 seconds of total firing time at combat load. When you are conducting close air support, orbiting over a firefight, responding to troops in contact, the difference between 4 seconds and a sustained gun run is the difference between a flyby and actual fire support. The ammunition gap is bad. The gun problems are worse. For years, the F-35A's internal cannon suffered from targeting alignment bugs severe enough that rounds consistently missed their aim points by meaningful margins. That's already disqualifying for precision ground support. But then the gun's muzzle blast started cracking the aircraft's skin panels. The outer surface of the stealth jet was physically breaking from firing its own weapon. While the Joint Program Office has worked to improve the gun, reports from early 2024 indicated that design and accuracy issues remained a concern, capping off years of documented failures. And even fixed, a 181-round gun on a single-engine stealth aircraft is not a structural replacement for a 7-barrel 30mm buzzsaw that slows the plane down when it fires. Retired A-10 pilot Martha McSally put it directly when she pushed back against Air Force retirement plans. Replacing an armored Warthog with a fragile F-35 for ground support is like saying a Ferrari can replace a pickup truck. That analogy is blunter than any defense budget briefing, and it's correct. The F-35 is extraordinary at what it was designed to do. Ground support for troops under fire, at low altitude, under small arms and man-portable missiles, sustained over a battlefield for extended periods, is not what it was designed to do. The retirement plan had a logic to it, from a budget perspective. The A-10 is primarily a specialized close air support aircraft. It does close air support, and it does it extraordinarily well, but it does almost nothing else. The Air Force wanted to move to multi-role platforms, reduce fleet complexity, cut maintenance costs. The Warthog is old, its parts are increasingly hard to source, and training pilots specifically for it requires dedicated infrastructure. Retiring it made financial sense on a spreadsheet, so they started shutting things down. The engine production line closed, the pilot training school closed. The final depot-level maintenance cycle on the remaining airframes completed. The Air Force had methodically begun dismantling the entire support structure for the aircraft. Operation Epic Fury ran from February 28th through May 5th, 2026. A-10 as deployed to the Middle East and flew close air support over the Strait of Hormuz. During those operations, Warthogs provided air cover as rescue teams recovered 2 downed F-15E airmen. Real combat, real extractions. The aircraft performed the mission it was built for, in a conflict hot enough that it mattered. The timing, given the ongoing retirement process, was its own argument. In April 2026, Air Force Secretary Dr. Troy Mike announced that 2 A-10 squadrons would have their service life extended to 2030, with a third extended to 2029. The retirement plan that had been years in the making, that had already shut down the infrastructure around the aircraft, reversed course. The plane stays until 2030 at minimum. That reversal created a practical problem. The Air Force extended the aircraft's service life after closing the depot that performed major maintenance on it, after shutting down the school that produced new pilots, after ending production of replacement engines. The planes are staying. The support structure that keeps them flying is already dismantled or being wound down. That's the crisis hiding inside the headline. 2 squadrons until 2030, with no clear plan for where trained pilots come from, how major airframe work gets done, or what happens when an engine needs replacement from a production line that no longer exists. Congressman Abraham Hamada introduced the BRRRT Act specifically because of this gap. The legislation aimed to legally prevent the Air Force from retiring Warthogs until the military could demonstrate a verified replacement that actually protects ground troops. The name is a reference to the sound the GAU-8 makes when fired. The underlying demand is serious. Prove you have something that does this job before you eliminate the thing that does this job. That proof has not materialized. The engineering case for why no replacement exists is not complicated. The GAU-8 Avenger is a dedicated weapon system that required a custom aircraft to carry it. Nothing in the current fleet carries an equivalent. The 30mm depleted uranium round, the 1,150 round capacity, the 10,000 pounds of recoil absorbed through a purpose-built airframe, the titanium armor protecting the pilot while they fly low enough to identify targets visually, that combination does not exist anywhere else. You can't take a piece of it and transplant it into another aircraft. The F-35 cannot carry the GAU-8. The fuselage isn't built for it. The mission profile is wrong for it. The recoil would destroy systems not designed to absorb it. What you're left with is a weapon system so specific, so extreme in its specifications, that no subsequent program has seriously attempted to replicate it. The military moved toward missiles, toward standoff weapons, toward platforms that don't require flying into the threat envelope to do their job. That shift makes sense against peer competitors with advanced air defenses. But troops in contact with enemy forces on the ground, needing fire support immediately, don't always have the luxury of standoff distance. Sometimes the answer is a plane that flies in, absorbs the hits, and puts rounds on target from a gun the size of a car. If this video is landing differently than you expected, hit like. The algorithm pushes it toward people who actually care about this stuff, and there are more of them than the Air Force seems to realize. That gun is still flying. Against every retirement projection, against every budget argument, against the institutional preference for clean multi-role platforms, the A-10 and its 3,900 rounds per minute cannon are still the answer to a problem nobody else has solved. No other aircraft in the inventory can do what a Warthog does for troops in contact. And the soldiers who have heard that grinding buzz overhead on their worst days know it. The Air Force can't replace the GAU-8 because replacing it would require building another A-10. And they don't want another A-10. They want the problem to go away. It hasn't. It won't. And by 2030, when the last extended squadrons reach their deadline, the question will still be there. What exactly replaces 3,900 rounds per minute of depleted uranium aimed at whatever is threatening your people on the ground? Nobody has a clean answer. The gun keeps flying because there is none. If any part of this stayed with you, like and subscribe. There are more stories like this one, where the gap between what the budget says and what actually works in combat turns into a crisis nobody planned for, and they're worth understanding before the next one arrives.